They clapped for him again, a loud artificial round of applause that echoed off the polished glass walls of the main executive conference room. I was sitting 3 seats down from the break room coffee machine, half listening to the quarterly performance call while pretending to fix the pipeline configuration on a server load balancer that had already been running perfectly since Tuesday morning. Let us give a massive round of applause to Gavin, our department head Bradley said into his microphone, his voice booming over the speaker system like he was announcing a Nobel Prize winner instead of praising a manager whose primary workplace skill was forwarding emails, updating status slides, and using corporate buzzwords like synergy, alignment, and leverage like they paid our office rent. Gavin successfully closed the enterprise logistics account and exceeded our department key performance indicators. By 20%, Bradley announced to the entire company. Amazing execution, man. Just incredible leadership. The entire room erupted in cheers, with executive managers pounding on the conference table like we had not all spent the last 2 straight weeks, watching Gavin hyperventilating in the hallway, frantically asking junior developers what a REST application programming interface even was. And me? I had spent 3 months building the entire underlying data pipeline for that rollout. I trained the junior engineers, wrote the comprehensive system documentation, and stayed up until 3 in the morning on a Thursday rewriting the operations scheduler. When our legacy database servers kept crashing during mid-tier deployment, I personally created the automated recovery scripts that saved the entire quarterly launch from complete public failure. 2 months ago, Gavin accidentally pushed an untested staging environment straight into live production, knocking out customer access for 4 hours, and somehow walked away from the incident with a performance bonus and a shiny promotion to senior manager. Me? I got a $10 coffee gift card and a vague, rehearsed speech about budget constraints from Bradley. Bradley was 42 years old, regularly wore collegiate sweatshirts from universities he never attended, and insisted on calling every senior engineer buddy or champ whenever he needed extra weekend coverage on critical projects. You are such an absolute anchor for this department, Dan. Bradley told me after the performance call ended, slapping my shoulder with fake corporate camaraderie. Everyone on the team relies on your stability and deep technical knowledge. I know a title adjustment and a significant salary raise are long overdue, but current corporate budget constraints are extremely tight across all technical divisions. You understand the corporate climate right now, right? I smiled, the exact kind of practiced, empty smile you learn to wear like body armor after years in corporate technology. Because in corporate engineering, if you show a single flinch of frustration, management simply piles twice as much workload onto your desk and calls it leadership trust. It was the 4th time in 2 consecutive years that budget constraints applied exclusively to me, while never applying to the guys who spent half their workday arguing about fantasy football leagues or trading speculative cryptocurrency tips in the lunchroom. That evening, I shut my company-issued laptop like it was a heavy pine coffin lid and opened my personal workstation. I was 49 years old, with 6 years of quiet, reliable service at Apex Logistics, and I was completely done waiting for management permission to exist. My machine, my environment, my rules. I was not going to vent on social media. I was not going to send passive-aggressive late-night emails to human resources. I was going to build. My private code repository waited on my dual monitors like a loaded instrument. The cloud orchestration platform I had been quietly engineering for the last 8 months lit up my screen. Modular, resilient, elegant, and completely untraceable to my corporate day job. Every single line of source code had been authored on my personal hardware, completely off the company clock, while sitting in quiet local coffee shops or under the dim yellow light of my kitchen table while reheating leftovers. I had even configured my personal Git identity with my personal email address and GPG signature key to ensure absolute cryptographic verification of my individual ownership. I did not need Bradley's permission or approval to build enterprise value. I had spent 6 years delivering reliable systems for Apex Logistics, watching middle managers harvest credit for my intellectual labor while offering empty corporate promises in return. And listen, If you have ever been passed over by management or forced to clap through someone else's unearned promotion just to keep your mortgage paid, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It keeps these stories alive and helps us bring real workplace accountability into the light. Back to the story. I was sitting on a fully functional prototype for an enterprise task orchestration engine named Falcon. Falcon was designed to track, assign, and dynamically reroute heavy operational data workflows across distributed server clusters, with fewer dropped packets than Bradley had corporate excuses. It had started as a personal intellectual exercise after our third departmental restructure. But over the autumn months, it evolved into a powerful software engine capable of automating complex data routing. I had quietly pitched the early architectural framework once to test market interest. A regional healthcare tech vendor liked the core concepts but hesitated, stating that their security team required higher compliance validation before considering a commercial deployment. That initial rejection did not discourage me. It lit a bigger fire under my ambition. Every skipped annual salary review became a new software module. Every time Bradley called me dependable like it was a compliment, instead of a professional leash, I optimized Falcon's algorithm latency. I would wake up at 5 in the morning to test network packet distribution before logging into my day job, and spend my Saturdays running automated stress tests across remote node clusters. I was not bitter. I was busy rewriting the rules of my career. Then came early March. Spencer Aldridge, the chief technology officer at a rapidly growing healthcare systems firm, reached out via email. They were ready to pilot Falcon across 2 regional data centers. If the 2-week trial succeeded, they wanted to discuss a formal commercial licensing agreement for enterprise distribution. My chest tightened with cautious excitement, but I was not a naive 25-year-old developer, eager to jump at the first commercial offer. I was a senior systems architect who understood corporate legal traps. I was still a full-time employee on payroll at Apex Logistics, a company whose corporate legal department loved to claim ownership over every technical idea conceived within 50 miles of their corporate headquarters. So that night, I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out my original employment contract from 6 years ago. Page 4, Clause 8.4. The employee retains sole and exclusive intellectual property rights to all inventions, software systems, and technical architectures developed independently outside of employer-paid working hours, provided no company hardware, network infrastructure, or confidential proprietary trade secrets are utilized, in full accordance with federal copyright statutory protections under Title 17 United States Code, Section 201B. Reading that clause felt like uncovering a hidden exit door inside a locked vault. I printed out that original contract page, highlighted Clause 8.4 in bright yellow ink, and placed it neatly inside a thick red folder where I kept every ignored promotion request, every written compliment from external client managers, and every email promising future compensation adjustments. Something told me that red folder was about to become my most valuable asset in corporate warfare. The key to executing a successful exit strategy while maintaining a demanding corporate job is making your growing ambition look like mild professional burnout. I immediately stopped staying past 5 in the afternoon. No more jumping into late-night emergency Slack huddles to fix broken code written by junior managers. No more answering urgent weekend text messages because Bradley needed a quick summary slide for his Monday morning briefing. I made myself intentionally uninteresting. I stopped volunteering for cross-departmental committees and stopped offering quick architectural fixes during morning sprint retrospectives. Dan seems to be losing his passion for the work, I overheard a senior director mention, near the break room water dispenser one afternoon. He used to be so committed to team success. Let them think whatever they wanted. Every unit of mental energy I stopped donating to Apex Logistics was energy I invested directly into Falcon. My evenings became deeply disciplined. I would shut off my corporate phone, slide the company laptop under a stack of household bills, and boot up my personal workstation. Falcon was fast, clean, and ridiculously efficient. Falcon did not care about quarterly corporate optics, department politics, or Bradley's fragile ego. Falcon monitored enterprise system task flows in real time, flagged server bottlenecks before they triggered major network outages, and redistributed workload queues based on historical node capacity. Falcon essentially executed Bradley's entire operational job, but without the corporate posturing, golf stories, and middle management excuses. I hosted all development and test environments on isolated cloud infrastructure, paid for entirely with my personal credit card, completely severed from any corporate network or company hardware. I never logged into personal email accounts from a work computer, never connected my personal mobile phone to office Wi-Fi networks, and never touched a single line of Falcon code between 8:30 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. By late January, the initial pilot with Spencer's healthcare firm was running seamlessly across their regional data centers. Spencer's technical team conducted rigorous daily audits on latency, security encryption, and node recovery. They were amazed that a single architect had built a platform capable of handling multi-region failovers without human intervention. Then came an official email from Spencer. Falcon handled our peak operational data load without a single drop packet or security fault. We are ready to sign a formal pilot license agreement for $45,000 for the first quarter, with an option for a multi-year enterprise expansion across all regional branches, $45,000. I stared at the signed confirmation document on my personal monitor for 20 minutes in complete silence. My annual salary at Apex Logistics after 6 years of dedicated senior service was $75,000. Falcon had just generated over half my annual corporate income in a single commercial transaction. I did not celebrate publicly. I did not post champagne photos or tell my coworkers. I printed out the signed licensing agreement, placed it neatly inside my red folder, and walked into the office the next morning as if nothing had changed, because I understood how corporate predators operated. The exact moment Bradley or executive management realized I had created something valuable outside their control, they would attempt to seize it, rebrand it as company property, and claim I had used corporate resources or working hours to build it. That Friday morning, Human Resources dropped a casual message into my corporate inbox that felt like a deliberate insult. "Hi, Dan. Just a quick heads up that we have finalized onboarding for our new associate systems analyst, Zachary Cole. Please set aside time on Monday morning to train him on our core deployment pipelines and grant him access to your primary system documentation. For your awareness regarding team budget allocations, his starting salary is $68,000. I sat back in my chair and read that message 4 times. $68,000 for Zachary? Zachary, who had graduated from college 8 months ago, who routinely misspelled basic database queries in his technical code reviews, and who had asked during his initial interview if Fridays were flexible because he preferred working 4 days a week to maintain life balance. Zachary was starting at over 90% of my total compensation. I had been at Apex Logistics for 6 full years, holding their critical infrastructure together through 3 major cloud server migrations, while earning $75,000. I did not raise my voice. I did not complain to HR. I simply took a high-resolution screenshot of the message, printed it out, and filed it inside my red folder alongside my notes on internal salary disparities and denied promotion requests. I knew that documenting these blatant compensation inequities would serve as vital context if executive management ever tried to portray me as an ungrateful or disloyal employee. 2 days later, Spencer called my personal phone again while I was sitting in my car during lunch. "Dan, word is spreading fast through our industry network about Falcon. Another regional healthcare logistics provider saw our operational integration metrics and wants to run a parallel trial. They are offering $35,000 for a 90-day trial deployment across their network. 2 enterprise clients, $80,000 in total contract value in under 1 month. 0 company resources used. The internal pressure was building rapidly, but so was my legal clarity. I was no longer a tired senior systems engineer begging management for a 3% annual performance raise. I was a founder standing on an ironclad legal foundation, and the corporate storm was about to hit. I did not launch Falcon with a flashy launch party, expensive public relations campaign, or corporate press release. I made a simple, professional post on my personal LinkedIn profile early on a Tuesday morning. After 8 months of independent technical development outside my regular employment hours, I am proud to announce the official public release of Falcon, an enterprise task orchestration engine designed for high-availability data systems, built for performance, stability, and enterprise scale. That was all. No dramatic callouts of former managers, no mention of Apex Logistics, and no complaints about corporate politics. Just a clean, professional product announcement. I closed my personal laptop, poured a fresh mug of black coffee, and walked outside for a 20-minute morning walk around my neighborhood. I expected maybe 10 or 12 passive impressions, mostly from old college classmates or former technical colleagues. When I returned to my desk 40 minutes later, my notification feed was overflowing. 62 comments, over 400 professional reactions, and dozens of direct messages from senior technical leaders across the software industry. This architecture looks exceptionally clean, Dan. We have been actively searching for a lightweight workflow orchestrator like this for 6 months. Can we schedule a short demonstration call this week? Wrote a principal systems architect at a major enterprise software group. Saw your launch announcement. Incredible execution on latency optimization and packet management. Are you open to discussing an early seed investment round? Sent a principal associate at a premier technology venture fund. Then my personal mobile phone began buzzing continuously on my desk. It was not a potential client. It was Bradley. Dan, call me right now on my direct line. Urgent. Read his first text message. 3 minutes later. Dan, I just saw your LinkedIn post. You need to take that down immediately. You cannot publicly announce software products without executive leadership approval. 2 minutes after that. We are scheduling an emergency sync with executive leadership in conference room C at 10:30 in the morning tomorrow. Do not touch any code or communicate with clients until we talk. I read Bradley's messages with a completely steady pulse. The corporate audacity was truly astonishing. Bradley treated me like a rogue employee who had stolen company office supplies, completely ignoring the years I had sacrificed my evenings and weekends to salvage his department deliverables while he took all the executive credit. He operated under the arrogant assumption that he owned my intellect simply because he signed my biweekly corporate paycheck. He assumed I was the same passive engineer who would quietly nod, apologize, and surrender my intellectual property to preserve my job security. I did not reply to his text messages. I did not panic or send emotional emails. Instead, I executed my pre-planned legal defense protocol. First, I executed a complete cryptographically signed backup of Falcon's entire source code repository across 3 separate multi-region cloud server providers, generating cryptographic secure hash algorithm 256 hashes for every file tree. Second, I exported time-stamped Git commit logs, proving that every single line of code had been committed between 6 in the evening and 7:30 in the morning on weekdays, or during weekends. Third, I pulled independent Internet Protocol access logs from my internet service provider, confirming that all development activity originated exclusively from my home network or personal mobile hotspot. Fourth, I compiled independent bank records showing every cloud server fee, domain registration, and software license had been paid using my personal credit card account. I organized every digital receipt into chronological order, ensuring that no corporate auditor could ever allege that a single cent of company money had funded my independent business venture. Finally, I added an explicit legal representation clause to my Falcon Client Master Service Agreement. Client acknowledges and confirms that Falcon is independent proprietary software developed solely by the founder without company resources, protected under statutory provisions of Title 17, United States Code, Section 201B. Apex Logistics was preparing to launch a corporate ambush, but I was not walking into that boardroom as a helpless target. I was walking in with indisputable legal proof. The emergency meeting was not added to my official Outlook calendar. An executive assistant walked over to my desk at 10:25 in the morning and quietly informed me that executive leadership requested my immediate presence in conference room C at 10:30 in the morning. I stood up from my chair, picked up my heavy red folder, and adjusted my charcoal blazer. Inside that folder lay 6 years of organized evidence, my original employment contract from 6 years ago, my highlighted clause 8.4, my server development logs, my personal bank statements showing independent cloud server payments, and high-resolution screenshots of Bradley denying my salary raise requests due to alleged budget constraints whilst hiring unproven junior analysts at near-equal compensation. When I opened the heavy glass door to Conference Room C, the atmosphere was dense with corporate hostility. Bradley sat at the head of the polished mahogany conference table, attempting to maintain an authoritative, commanding posture. To his right sat Julian Vance, the company's senior corporate legal counsel, wearing a tailored gray suit and holding a thick yellow legal pad. Across from them sat 2 senior members of the executive board, and at the far end of the table sat Marshall Sanford, the lead investor and majority shareholder of Apex Logistics, a quiet, sharp-eyed businessman in his early 60s who rarely attended internal operational meetings. "Dan, please take a seat," Bradley said, gesturing sternly toward an empty chair positioned directly facing the panel of executives. I pulled out the chair, sat down calmly, and placed my red folder flat on the mahogany surface in front of me. "We were extremely disappointed and frankly shocked to see your public announcement yesterday," Bradley began, leaning forward with his elbows planted on the table. "It has raised severe internal concerns regarding corporate intellectual property, employee conflict of interest, and direct breach of company loyalty." I remained completely silent, keeping my posture relaxed and maintaining steady eye contact with Bradley. "You developed an enterprise orchestration platform while employed full-time as our senior systems architect," Bradley continued, his voice rising with dramatic corporate authority. "Under standard corporate governance and employment policies, any technical software built by a full-time engineer during their tenure belongs entirely to Apex Logistics. We own your code, pal. You cannot simply launch a private enterprise on our watch." The 2 board members nodded in stern agreement, folding their arms. Julian Vance, the corporate attorney, licked his lips, cleared his throat, and assumed his practiced courtroom posture. "Mr. Miller," Attorney Vance said in a measured, authoritative voice, "as a full-time employee under an active employment agreement, you owe a strict fiduciary duty of loyalty to this enterprise. Under established common law, work-for-hire doctrines, and standard proprietary invention assignment provisions, software solutions created within your core technical domain are presumptively company property. If you attempt to commercialize this product independently, the company is fully prepared to issue an immediate cease and desist, freeze your client accounts, and pursue full legal remedies for breach of contract and duty of loyalty." Vance leaned back in his leather chair, folding his hands over his legal pad, clearly expecting me to flinch, offer an immediate settlement, or plead to save my job. Instead, I opened my red folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the mahogany table directly in front of Attorney Vance. "That is my original employment agreement from 6 years ago," I said, keeping my voice completely calm and measured. "Please turn to page 4, clause 8.4, and read the highlighted section out loud for the board." Attorney Vance looked down at the document with mild condescension. He adjusted his glasses, licked his thumb, and turned to page 4. Bradley scoffed loudly. "Dan, showing us your 6-year-old offer letter is not going to alter fundamental corporate ownership principles. Read the highlighted section out loud, Mr. Vance," I interrupted firmly, without raising my voice. Vance scanned the top paragraph, his eyes moving quickly across the black text. Then his posture suddenly stiffened. He paused, leaned closer to the paper, and read the highlighted lines a second time in complete silence. I knew the exact legal words that stopped him cold in his tracks. Clause 8.4, Proprietary Invention Exclusion. In accordance with statutory protections under Title 17, United States Code, Section 201B, the employee retains sole, unencumbered, and exclusive intellectual property rights to any software, systems, or technical architectures developed independently outside of employer-paid working hours, provided no company hardware, network infrastructure, or confidential proprietary trade secrets are utilized. The silence inside Conference Room C became absolute. The only sound was the low hum of the ceiling air conditioning vents. What does it say, Julian? Bradley demanded, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere. What is the issue here? Attorney Vance did not look at Bradley. He turned the page, examined the signature line at the bottom, and stared at the handwritten signature of the company's former human resources director from 6 years ago. This is an original legacy employment contract, Vance said softly, his confident corporate tone completely vanishing. It contains a specific statutory exclusion clause that was permanently removed from standard employee contracts 4 years ago. So what? Bradley snapped, his face turning pale. He was still our full-time employee when he wrote the code. Legally, Mr. Hollister, Vance replied, turning his head slowly toward Bradley with an expression of deep concern. If Mr. Miller developed this software entirely off hours, on personal hardware, without company networks, this clause explicitly grants him full individual ownership. Under federal copyright law and this executed agreement, the company has zero legal claim to his intellectual property. Bradley's face flushed a deep, blotchy crimson. But he used his brain. He used the professional skills he built while working for us. Professional skill and general engineering knowledge are personal assets, not proprietary company property, Vance stated bluntly. If his timestamped commit logs confirm off-hours development, any litigation we file will be dismissed immediately, and we could face severe judicial sanctions for bad faith, tortious interference. I reached into my red folder again and pulled out a bound stack of verified technical records. These are cryptographic third-party timestamp logs for every commit in Falcon's repository, along with Internet Protocol access records and personal hardware purchase receipts, I stated calmly. Everything has been audited by an independent technology attorney. If Apex Logistics attempts to file a claim or interfere with my clients, my counsel is prepared to file an immediate countersuit for tortious interference and publish these contract records publicly. At that exact moment, Marshall Sanford, the lead investor and majority shareholder who had remained silent the entire meeting, slowly stood up from his chair at the far end of the table. He placed his hands in his suit pockets, looked directly at Bradley, and then looked at the 2 executive board members. In my 40 years of executive business, Sanford said, his voice quiet but sharp as a razor, I have witnessed many management failures, but this is one of the most disgraceful displays of incompetence I have ever seen. Bradley blinked, completely stunned. Mr. Sanford, we were simply trying to protect company assets. You were trying to bully a senior engineer whose immense talent you failed to recognize for 6 full years, Sanford interrupted sharply. You denied him raises under the cheap excuse of budget constraints, while paying unproven junior hires near equal salaries. He followed his contract to the letter, built an extraordinary piece of enterprise technology on his own time, and instead of partnering with him or treating him with respect, you brought him into this boardroom to threaten him with baseless legal action. Sanford turned to Attorney Vance. Do we have any legal leverage whatsoever? None, sir, Vance admitted quietly. Mr. Miller holds complete legal protection. Sanford nodded once, looked Bradley dead in the eye, and uttered 3 words that shattered Bradley's corporate career. We are done. Sanford picked up his leather notebook, walked past Bradley without another word, and exited conference room C. The 2 board members immediately stood up and followed him out in complete silence, leaving Bradley sitting red-faced and trembling in his chair. I gathered my original documents, placed them back inside my red folder, and zipped my bag. You could have had a strategic partnership years ago, Bradley, I said softly as I stood near the door. All you had to do was treat people fairly. I walked out of conference room C into the bright hallway. My personal mobile phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. It was an email from a prominent Silicon Valley technology fund. Dan, we reviewed Falcon's architecture and performance metrics. We would like to issue a formal term sheet for a $1.5 million seed investment round. Please let us know your availability for a call today. I smiled, stepped into the elevator, and watched the doors close on Apex Logistics for the last time. I was not just walking away from a job. I was walking into my future as an independent founder, fully protected, fully validated, and completely free. Looking back on those 6 years at Apex Logistics, I realized that the greatest threat to a dedicated professional is not hard work or difficult technical challenges. The greatest threat is staying in an environment where your contributions are systematically undervalued by managers who view your quiet reliability as permission to exploit you. When you build your skills, protect your legal rights, and maintain your integrity, no corporate executive or arrogant manager can take away what you have earned. Know your worth, read every contract you sign, and never be afraid to step out onto your own path when the time comes. Your talent is your own property, and your future belongs to you.